Have you ever wondered why, in your most crucial moments, when you need clarity and focus the most, your mind obsessively drifts towards sex? Why, when you're about to close a deal, create something revolutionary, or make a life-altering decision, is your consciousness invaded by thoughts, fantasies, and impulses that seem to originate from a dark, uncontrollable part of your psyche? This isn't a comfortable question. It forces us to confront the abyss within, to acknowledge a primitive, powerful force operating behind the scenes of our minds, an energy most people prefer to ignore, repress, or compulsively satisfy. But what if I told you that this force, this sexual energy you try to control or have become enslaved by, is actually the key to your highest potential? What if all your struggle against sexual impulses, all your guilt, all your compulsion is merely the result of a profound misunderstanding of this energy's nature? Napoleon Hill, a leading authority on human achievement, discovered something modern society has largely forgotten. Sexual energy isn't just a biological urge for reproduction or fleeting pleasure. It's the most potent life force within a human being, the same energy that, when consciously transmuted, becomes creativity, magnetism, power of accomplishment, mental clarity, and spiritual presence. Hill called this process sexual transmutation, a concept most people barely grasp, yet it represents the difference between a life of mediocrity and a life of greatness. Carl Jung, the renowned depth psychologist, showed us that what we repress in the unconscious doesn't disappear. It strengthens in the shadow, gaining power over us. Your repressed, denied, or misunderstood sexual energy doesn't vanish. It transforms into obsession, compulsion, addiction, anxiety, lack of focus, and a constant feeling of being controlled by something larger than yourself. Jung taught us that the shadow, that part of ourselves we prefer to deny, contains not only our darkest aspects, but also our highest potentials, our deepest powers. When you compulsively masturbate, lose yourself in endless sexual fantasies, or feel your life force being drained by seemingly uncontrollable impulses, you're not just dealing with a sexual issue. You're face to face with your shadow, with the most powerful energy within you being wasted, dissipated, misdirected. And this energy, when misunderstood, becomes your greatest obstacle. When understood and transmuted, it becomes your greatest strength. Modern society has conditioned us to view sex as something to be immediately gratified, as if it's merely a physical tension needing release. We live in a culture that has turned sexual energy into a commodity, entertainment, and escape. We're constantly bombarded with sexual stimuli, images, sounds, and ideas that activate our most primal impulses, keeping us in a constant state of arousal and dissatisfaction. And so, when this energy manifests within us, our conditioned response is to satisfy it as quickly and easily as possible. But Napoleon Hill discovered what ancient sages already knew. Sexual energy is creative energy in its purest, most concentrated form. It's the same force that creates life, perpetuates the species, and connects us to the divine power of creation. When you dissipate this energy compulsively, when you waste it on fleeting pleasures, you're not just losing a moment of pleasure, you're literally draining your life force, your ability to create, manifest, and achieve. Hill observed that history's most accomplished men and women shared a common trait. They knew how to channel their sexual energy towards their highest goals. Not because they were repressed or denied their sexuality, but because they understood that this energy could be transmuted, transformed, redirected to higher purposes. They discovered that the same energy that led them to sexual ecstasy could be channeled into creative ecstasy, into passion for their projects, into building empires, into creating works of art that transcend time. When you find yourself dominated by compulsive sexual impulses, when you feel unable to control your thoughts and fantasies, when your life force seems to be sucked away by an invisible force, you're experiencing what Jung would call possession by the shadow. Your unrecognized and consciously unintegrated sexual energy takes over, becoming an autonomous force operating on the fringes of your awareness. But here's the paradox few understand. You can't control this energy by fighting it. You can't repress, deny, or try to destroy it. Any attempt to destroy your sexual energy is an attempt to destroy your own life force. It's like trying to extinguish the fire that fuels your internal engine. True mastery doesn't come from repression, but from conscious transmutation. Sexual transmutation, as Hill described it, is an internal alchemical process where the lead of primal impulses is transformed into the gold of conscious achievement. It's a path where you don't deny the fire burning within you, but learn to direct it, channel it, transform it into light. It's the journey of the inner warrior who doesn't flee the battle, but transforms it into a dance. Imagine for a moment that your sexual energy is like a powerful river flowing through you. When this river is undirected, when there are no consciously built channels to guide it, it becomes a destructive flood, ravaging everything in its path. But when you build conscious channels, when you direct this river where it can nourish and fertilize, it becomes the source of all abundance in your life. Compulsive masturbation, pornography, obsessive sexual fantasies, these are all ways of letting the river overflow without direction. It's vital energy being wasted, dissipated, lost. And each time this happens, you're not just losing a moment of pleasure, you're losing an opportunity for growth, creation, fulfillment. Carl Jung discovered that our sexual impulses carry profound messages about our psyche, about our unhealed wounds, about our undeveloped potential. When you find yourself compulsively seeking sexual gratification, when you feel you can't control these impulses, your psyche is trying to tell you something important. It's pointing to existential voids that need to be filled, to aspects of your personality that need to be integrated, to powers that need to be developed. Every sexual fantasy carries deep symbolism. Every compulsive urge points to an energy that's trying to manifest in a higher way. When you learn to read these signs, when you develop the ability to dialogue with your shadow self instead of being dominated by it, you begin to uncover hidden treasures in your psyche. The man who compulsively masturbates is often trying to fill an existential void, a lack of purpose, an absence of passion in his life. His sexual energy becomes an escape, a flight from reality, a way to avoid confronting deeper issues. Carl Jung showed us that individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated individual, requires the integration of all aspects of our personality, including our sexuality. But integration doesn't mean compulsive satisfaction. It means understanding, acceptance, conscious transmutation. The integrated man is neither someone who represses his sexuality, nor someone who compulsively indulges in it. He's someone who understands his sexuality as a sacred force that can be channeled for higher purposes. He's someone who has transformed his sexual energy into creative energy, personal magnetism, and the power of achievement. When you look at history's great creators, the artists, inventors, leaders, visionaries, you realize that many of them developed ways to channel their sexual energy into their creations. They discovered that the same energy that led them to sexual ecstasy could be channeled into creative ecstasy. This doesn't mean they were celibate or denied their sexuality. It means they understood that their sexual energy was far more powerful when consciously directed than when compulsively dissipated. They learned to use this energy as fuel for creation, as a source of inspiration, as the driving force behind their achievements. Sexual transmutation is a deeply personal and individual process. There's no single formula that works for everyone. Each person must discover their own way of channeling this powerful energy. But there are universal principles that can guide this journey. The first principle is awareness. You must develop the ability to observe your sexual impulses without being dominated by them. This requires practice, patience, and discipline. It's like learning to observe the waves of the ocean without being swept away by them. The second principle is acceptance. You must accept that your sexual energy is a natural and powerful part of who you are. There's nothing wrong with having intense sexual impulses. The problem arises when you become a slave to these impulses or when you repress them in an unhealthy way. The third principle is active transmutation. You must learn specific techniques to channel your sexual energy for constructive purposes. This can include intense physical exercise, creative work, meditation, visualization, conscious breathing, and many other practices. The fourth principle is patience. Sexual transmutation isn't a process that happens overnight. It's a discipline that requires time, dedication, and perseverance. But the results, when you persist, are extraordinary. Jung discovered that our sexuality is intimately connected to our creativity, our spirituality, and our ability to connect deeply with others. When we learn to integrate our sexual energy consciously, all these areas of our lives are transformed. The man who masters his sexuality develops a natural magnetism that attracts opportunities, relationships, and resources. He radiates